Forget the headline for a second, because the real tea is far messier. Meghan Markle's lifestyle brand is reportedly sitting on nearly $5 million worth of jam, flour sprinkles, and dog biscuits that shoppers are apparently ignoring. Every outlet grabbed that headline this week, but that is not the actual story. The real question is why all that inventory is collecting dust in a warehouse to begin with. And surprisingly, it has very little to do with marketing, product strategy, or a rough stretch of website traffic. It comes down to one powerful word printed on every jar, every package, and every press release this brand has ever pushed. And that word may not make it past the next coronation. By the end of this video, you will see why a $5 million inventory write-off could be the tiniest problem in this entire saga. Now here's where things get interesting. What you are about to hear connects two stories that most channels are treating like they belong in completely different worlds. One is the brand meltdown dominating headlines this week, the jam, the traffic numbers, and the divorce rumors. The other is the reported plan to strip royal titles, something 3 royal biographers claim could happen the moment William becomes king. Almost nobody has lined these two stories up side by side, but once you do, the jam issue stops looking like a simple marketing flop. Instead, it starts looking like the first visible crack in something that may have had an expiration date built into its foundation from the very beginning. Here is the quick version if you missed the original reporting. According to the New York Post's page 6, Meghan Markle's lifestyle brand could be staring at roughly $5 million in losses if it cannot clear existing inventory before it expires in the summer of 2027. The flour sprinkle jars alone could reportedly add another $1 million to that figure. Website traffic has also been moving in the wrong direction. 213,000 visits in February, a brief jump to 226,000 in March, and then a drop to 178,000 in April. Netflix is reportedly helping move excess inventory, while Spotify has already ended its deal with the couple. On top of all that, divorce speculation continues to swirl, with claims that Harry and Meghan Markle may struggle with the financial burden of a split because of the multiple mortgages reportedly attached to the $14.5 million Montecito mansion they purchased in 2020. Every channel keeps asking the same thing. Why is the brand failing? But that may be the wrong question. The better question is this: what was this brand actually built on? And was it ever designed to survive long-term no matter how well it was managed? Let us start with the easiest thing to spot, and one of the hardest things to fix. The product lineup feels completely disconnected. Jam, flour sprinkles, chocolates, dog biscuits, bookmarks. Seriously, what ties a seasoning product to a bookmark? Nothing. And in consumer branding, that missing connection can be devastating because it destroys repeat buying behavior. Successful lifestyle brands sell an identity first and product second. Goop sells wellness and aspiration. Protein brands sell discipline and performance. Celebrity fragrances sell a fantasy. Customers return because they understand the identity and want more of it. This brand never really settled on one. The unspoken pitch seemed to be simple access to Meghan Markle herself. The Duchess image was applied to whichever category looked commercially attractive at the time, and that approach works exactly once during a launch cycle. What it does not create is the one thing every brand needs to survive beyond year one: customers who return because they understand and believe in what the brand actually represents. And when you compare that idea to the traffic numbers, everything suddenly makes sense. 200,000 monthly visits may sound impressive, but even with a generous 2% conversion rate, that only translates into roughly 4,000 orders spread across 5 or 6 unrelated product categories. That is not a thriving business. That is a news cycle being monetized in real time. And news cycles never last forever. So the product sprawl is not simply the result of poor planning. It is what happens when a brand's entire premium comes from a famous name and a royal title instead of a clear, focused product vision. You sell everything when the product itself was never really the star of the show. But here's the question almost nobody discussing that $5 million figure seems interested in asking. Whose $5 million is it exactly? Brands operating at this level are rarely built around one personal bank account. Celebrity-led consumer products sold directly to customers, with large-scale manufacturing and fulfillment, are usually structured through holding companies, licensing arrangements, outside investors, or manufacturing partners willing to assume production and inventory risk in exchange for a share of future profits. If that is the setup here, then the headline means something completely different. A $5 million inventory write-off absorbed by an investor or manufacturing partner is an unpleasant quarter for that company. The exact same number sitting directly on the balance sheet of Meghan Markle and Harry is an entirely different story for a household reportedly spending close to $3 million annually just to maintain normal operations. According to reporting from Tom Bauer in Betrayal, one major detail remains strangely unanswered. Nobody covering this story has clearly explained which scenario is actually true. And that is not some tiny technicality. It is the difference between a disappointing business quarter and a situation where people might genuinely be wondering how the bills get paid. The fact that this keeps being skipped says a lot about how the story is being presented. The focus stays on the shocking headline number rather than what the number actually means underneath the surface. What we do know, because Bauer addresses it directly, is that financial pressure appears to be showing up across multiple Sussex income streams, not just the lifestyle brand. The streaming deals reportedly underperformed. Spotify is completely gone. Whatever income remains still has to cover security expenses, mortgage obligations on a $14.5 million property, and the costs associated with maintaining staff, operations, and daily logistics. Even if the $5 million inventory issue belongs primarily to a business partner, the broader trend surrounding it does not. And this is where the conversation becomes much bigger than expired jam and unsold flour sprinkles. What was this brand actually selling? Not the products themselves. It was selling a premium. It was selling the reason one jar of strawberry preserve could attract media coverage, attention, and pricing power that an identical jar without that association never could. The premium was one word, Duchess. Take that word away, and suddenly you are left with a direct-to-consumer jam and seasoning company that lacks a flagship product, lacks a clear identity, and relies heavily on curiosity instead of customer loyalty. Put the word back, and the entire picture changes. Instantly, it becomes a royal lifestyle brand receiving worldwide media attention every time a product launches. That title was never simply a courtesy. It functioned as the commercial engine behind the entire operation. In fact, it may be the only reason a brand with such an unfocused strategy managed to generate significant attention and revenue in the first place. And that is exactly why this story matters, far more than a warehouse packed with aging inventory. 3 royal biographers, Tom Sykes in The Daily Beast, Tom Bauer in Betrayal, and historian Andrew Loney, have all independently reported, citing sources, that William intends to remove the royal titles of Harry, Meghan Markle, and their children, Archie and Lilibet, when he becomes king. Neither Buckingham Palace nor Kensington Palace has publicly denied those reports. The tool reportedly available for such a move is letters patent, a royal instrument that does not require Parliament, does not require court approval, and does not require anyone else's permission beyond the highest level of royal authority. The reason people take that possibility seriously is because similar mechanisms have reportedly been used before. The argument is simple. If a title can be removed through an established royal process, then the foundation supporting the brand's premium is not permanent. So imagine the next step. The very thing that transforms a jam company into a headline-generating global talking point exists behind mechanism that supporters of this theory believe could be activated at any time. The moment William signs that document, every product line, licensing pitch, and marketing advantage tied to that royal association changes instantly. Not gradually. Instantly. No transition period. No grace period. One day the brand enjoys automatic global attention through royal connections, and the next day it faces the market without that advantage, while customer interest may already be slipping according to the traffic numbers reported between February and April. That is the connection almost nobody discussing the $5 million headline seems willing to make. The inventory issue, the declining traffic, and the Netflix concerns are not necessarily the disease. They may simply be early warning signs. A brand built around a status that could theoretically disappear one day does not struggle only because of product decisions. It struggles because the foundation itself may have always been temporary. Whether the people running it ignored that clock or recognized it and expanded as quickly as possible is open to debate. Jam, sprinkles, chocolates, bookmarks, anything capable of generating sales while the opportunity existed. And here is the part that should make anyone paying attention stop for a second. The inventory issue itself is actually survivable. Businesses recover from inventory mistakes all the time. Slash prices, clear stock, move excess product, and start fresh with a smaller, tighter catalog. That problem by itself is not fatal. Find a liquidation partner. Take the hit. Trim the operation. Focus the catalog on one or two categories that customers might actually buy again and again. Businesses recover from inventory mistakes all the time. That kind of setback by itself is not a death sentence. What you cannot do is discount your way out of losing the title. There's no magical relaunch plan for a royal lifestyle brand once the royal part legally disappears. You cannot simply slap on a new label and move forward because the very reason retailers, media outlets, and curious shoppers paid attention in the first place was the connection to the crown. And unlike inventory decisions, which fall entirely on Meghan Markle's team, the title question belongs to somebody else altogether. Somebody who, according to Roy and Nika of the Sunday Times, is widely viewed as one of the journalists most trusted by senior working royals when they want information circulated without making an official statement. Somebody known for remembering slights, choosing sides, and holding long memories. Somebody who recently spent nearly 3 hours on national breakfast radio warmly discussing his wife, his 3 children, and his late grandmother in remarkable detail, yet never once mentioned Meghan Markle, Harry, Archie, or Lilibet. The jam comes with a clear expiration date, summer 2027. A fixed date can be planned for. A title cannot. The title simply waits. It waits for a transition of power tied entirely to the health of one man and the patience, or lack of patience, of the man standing directly behind him. And if that sounds unusual, compare it with how other celebrity brands have survived rough periods. Goop endured controversial products, years of criticism, public ridicule, and genuine financial uncertainty. Yet it survived because the core asset, Gwyneth Paltrow's personal brand, could never be legally taken away. She owned the foundation herself. When a celebrity beauty brand or hair care line struggles through a failed launch or a public backlash, the company can regroup, adjust, and rebuild because the celebrity's name and platform remain theirs regardless of what a boardroom, institution, or family decides. That is the key difference here, and it is a massive one. Nearly every celebrity brand crisis in recent memory came with a recovery path because the central asset survived the turbulence. According to the reporting behind this story, this may be the only major lifestyle brand built around a credential that another party reportedly has the authority to remove entirely, on a timeline only that party controls. That is not comparable to a weak product launch. It is a completely different structural challenge, and it is why the $5 million headline may actually understate the scale of the concern. So when you see headlines about flour sprinkles aging in a warehouse, understand what some observers believe you are really seeing. Not merely a marketing stumble, not simply an odd decision to sell bookmarks beside seasoning jars. What they argue you are seeing is the first visible tremor in a structure built heavily on borrowed royal credibility. Credibility tied to a timetable that the people running the business cannot set, negotiate, or postpone. The jam was never the foundation. It was simply the visible part, sitting on a shelf, with an expiration date printed on the lid. The larger concern, according to this argument, is not sitting in a warehouse at all. It is tied to a set of letters patent, waiting for a signature, on a timeline dependent on somebody else's health and somebody else's willingness to wait. And if the biographers covering this family are correct, they suggest that patience may have disappeared long ago. Now I want to hear from you. If the title were gone tomorrow, does this brand still have a realistic path forward? Or was the entire business model, from the very first jar, quietly operating on a countdown clock that nobody wanted to acknowledge?